Grand Central Terminal stands as one of our great city landmarks. At least it stands as of this moment.
It was built to stand for centuries. But by 1969, New York's Grand Central Terminal was in trouble.
Tomorrow, the Landmarks Preservation Commission begins a hearing that could result in Grand Central Terminal being sent the way of the Brokaw Mansions and the old Penn Station. Remember them?
Kent Barwick did, and he led an effort to save the old building from developers.
At one time, they wanted to put 3 levels of bowling alleys in this room, an idea that happily got laughed out of town.
Bowling alleys.
Bowling alleys. But their big idea was to put a tower above this building and destroy this room.
This is what might have been a high-rise office building rising out of the terminal's remains. After a major court battle and a little help from Jacqueline Onassis, Grand Central was saved. Today, that decision seems like a no-brainer. But in general, historic preservation is, at best, a tricky business.
At this point, how do we decide what to save?
We want to save the best of every period, ideally. We also want to protect certain kinds of neighborhoods, like Beacon Hill in Boston or Georgetown in Washington. That's really important.
Paul Goldberger is architecture critic for Vanity Fair.
The dark underside of historic preservation is that we often preserve not so much because we love what we're protecting, it's because we fear what will replace it. And unfortunately, we've been right a lot of the time.
Those fears are justified.
Those fears are often justified.
A case in point, Madison Square Garden, which was built on the spot where the magnificent Penn Station once stood.
Passengers for Columbus, Dayton.
They may not make them like they used to, but that doesn't mean no one's trying.
This was nothing. I mean, you built this from the ground up.
The buildings on this street in downtown New York are well over 100 years old, except for the one on the corner. It's nearly new, but built the old-fashioned way, with old-fashioned bricks.
All our bricks were dead stock. What dead stock means is it's bricks that literally hadn't been used since 1950. No exaggeration.
Robin Standifer and Stephen Alish are founders of the design firm Roman & Williams.
To do a really good brick building with wood windows right now, it's a breakthrough.
And when the place was finished in 2009, people just thought it had always been there.
When we took the scaffolding down, they just thought we had cleaned the building. You know, that was.
But you built it from nothing.
Totally, ground up.
In an age of generic glass buildings, their designs evoke a sense of personality and permanence.
We feel like we could build a building right now with current labor, materials that could last 400 or 500 years without a problem.
Ironically, their first buildings were meant to be torn down. They built movie sets, including this house for the 1998 film Practical Magic.
30 people have called us and said, "Where's that house? I love that house. I want that house." I mean, there's a whole website devoted to the kitchen.
Now, instead of designing things that last forever on film, they design buildings they hope will just plain last.
How do you feel walking into this place?
We love it.
At New York's historic Schermerhorn building, the interior they designed for the brand new Lafayette restaurant uses the same materials that might have been found when the building was built in the 1880s, but it only feels old.
Interesting walking through here is that it looks like this place has been here forever. And yet it's been open how many weeks?
2.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Roman & Williams, I think, are really, really good at understanding what kind of visceral thing we have inside us that makes us respond to certain things. Beautiful things that are sort of what you remember, but they're actually really better. It's a more perfect version of the past.
Other critics have called their old-fashioned designs a passing trend. But Standifer and Alish, who happen to be married to each other, say their designs, like their buildings, are here to stay.
I think in 5 years there'll be 3 people doing it. In 10 years there'll be 500 people doing it, design firms. I think it's a cultural shift that is going to last a long time.
And whether it's new, built to old standards, or an old building saved for a new generation, the effect is often the same. Great buildings move us.
Historic architecture is part of our culture, just the way art, music, literature, I mean, these are all parts of our culture. Architecture is the only one that's around us all the time, every day, and that does its magic on us every day. And so I think people really want the buildings that perform magic, that makes their heart lift up for a moment as they walk past it, that makes them feel good, even if they never have a reason to go inside.